My name is Craig Gillgrass. To my left is Aaron Pulver, and for the next 60 minutes, we're going to take you on a whirlwind tour of workforce, and specifically automating workforce with Python. Can you guys hear me okay at the back? Is this okay? All right. So, how many people in here have not used workforce? So brand new AV guys can't raise your hand, but I appreciate it. Okay, so majority of people. So we're going to kick off with just a little bit of an introduction to it, what workforce is, what use cases we're trying to solve, who we're solving it for. And then Aaron and I are going to go back and forth. He's going to show quite a bit of code, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the use cases and what we're using it for. So workforce is a mobile solution that we offer at Esri, and it's for your field workforce optimization. A couple years ago, our product manager, Jeff Shaner, who's also the product manager for Collector, was at a couple user sites, and they asked, you know, we really like Collector. It's great for allowing us to go out in the field and gather data and collect information, but we really need to communicate with our workers in the field somehow. We'd like to get them new information about the work that they have to do throughout the day, and ideally we'd love to know what their status is. Are they working? Are they on a break? Are they offline for the day? So there was a collection of information and requests that we heard from users all around allowing them to better manage their mobile workers, and that's really where the idea of workforce came from. We created it as a separate app that can be used in conjunction with Collector, because on the apps team we really focus on building apps that are dedicated to particular needs and building them very well for that scenario, and then having them work really well together. And that's something that we're going to demonstrate in the workforce session tomorrow afternoon, if you're going to that as well. So workforce allows the dispatchers or supervisors in the central office or in the back office to be able to see where their workers are in the field, see what their working status is, and also get information to them about their work is that they need to do throughout the day. So it allows those workers to be able to view and see their working list. When you talk to a lot of workers out in the field, they're actually having that mobile to-do list, the list of work that they're going to go through and work on in the day. It might be a stack of service requests that they're taking with them out in the field. It also might actually be a piece of paper with a number of work orders or pieces of information that they have to do through the day and working on it. Workforce allows those workers in the field to get those notifications, and as I mentioned before, set the working status as well so that the people in the back office who's coordinating and sending that work out are able to see if the workers are available to receive that work. The workers are also able to add notes to those work assignments that they're doing in the field. A lot of times when you look at the paper work orders or service requests, whatever the term might be that you're using in your organization or your customers are using, a lot of times there's a really big empty space on that piece of paper, which might say comments or notes or just stuff you need to tell us about when you're doing this work. That's what the notes is all about. So it allows the workers in the field to add some information about the work that they're doing so it can make it back to the central office. Since Workforce is part of the ArcGIS Online platform, we also have access to attachments, so you can attach PDFs or other files to be able to send that additional information to your workers in the field. Now there's three main roles with respect to Workforce, and when we talk to a lot of sites, these are the roles that kept coming out of it. The first one is who we call the project owner. This is a GIS administrator. They're that person in the back office who maybe works for IT, but they're responsible for that GIS ecosystem, creating web maps, creating feature services, creating all those items, those pieces of the information model that drive the other areas of ArcGIS. So we targeted this as one of the roles that we wanted to work on for Workforce. So for that GIS administrator, we provide them with an easy-to-use web application which allows them to create these projects which drive the assignment of work. We allow them to add different users in the organization in the different roles, whether they be dispatchers who are responsible for creating work assignments to the mobile workers, or those mobile workers who take the mobile device out in the field with them, whether it be their iOS or Android device. Now, a lot of times, these project owners, these GIS administrators also need to configure the web maps and the layers. You might need to add particular asset layers to the web maps so your workers in the field can see what they're working on. Maybe they're doing hydrant inspections, and they want to be able to see where those hydrant locations are, or they might be doing something like valve exercising or sidewalk maintenance. You've got these different asset layers or operational layers within your organization that you want to add to the maps. That's the project owner who configures that and makes sure that it's configured properly for the dispatcher and that mobile worker. The project owner is also the person who configures Workforce for use with the other apps, like I talked about, for use with Collector, for example, like that example I gave for what our product manager had heard, or any of the other ArcGIS apps that Workforce works with, Navigator or Survey 123. Now, the other role that we have in organizations is a dispatcher, and whatever name this might be, this is the person who's responsible for creating and assigning work to mobile workers. We call them the dispatcher, but you could think of them like a supervisor, someone in the central office. They create these work assignments in a couple different ways. It's usually planned or unplanned. So planned work is where someone's made a decision that through regular maintenance or through a periodicity that occurs throughout the year, it might be monthly or quarterly, some work needs to be done on assets in your organization. A good example of that is like valve exercising. Within water or gas networks, you need to exercise those valves to make sure that they continue to work. That's the type of work that's done regularly, so it's that idea of planned work that's done. The other type of work that dispatchers handle are unplanned. Someone calls in, reports maybe to a 311 system that there's an issue out in the field and it needs to be handled. So the dispatcher is able to both view planned work that's coming up, that's been created, and also handle that unplanned work and be able to create it right within the web application and set it up. Now, there's a couple different ways that they can do that. They can do it through geocoding, looking for an address through the geocoder. They can also use the map to just simply click on the location. They can click on those individual assets, like the hydrants that I talked about, or they can do it automatically, which is what Aaron's going to be showing in a little bit. The dispatcher is also able to filter through their assignments, so they can really narrow in to which assignments they need to focus in on and which they need to look at. And they're also given a view of where all their mobile workers are located. Really, for the dispatcher, what we're trying to do is give them that context, both in list and in a map form, of where their workers are, where the work is being done, and what assets that work is being done on. Now, the last the last role that we have is the worker, and this is an example here of the mobile app, where the worker is provided with that work assignment on their mobile device, either Android or iOS, that gives them the information that they need to do the work. When that is due, what the priority of it might be, and also the type of work that's being done. Now, there's a number of pieces of information that are here that we're going to talk a little about as Aaron goes through the script, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but keep in mind that assignments have a well-defined schema, things like priority, when they're due, and those are things that you can set either through the web app or through the script. So that mobile worker is able to get that information from the dispatchers and see that information that's available so they can work on their work assignment. The other key piece of information is information about the workers themselves. So what their working status is, what their contact number is, if workers need to reach each other within the field to be able to ask for other equipment or maybe help working on something. Maybe you want to be able to actually drive to one of those workers to get that piece of equipment or help them out. So all that information is available to your workers in the field to be able to work with and use. So that's a really quick overview of what Workforce is. And like I mentioned, we have a session tomorrow afternoon that goes into this in a lot more detail. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Aaron. And what Aaron's going to do is he's going to demonstrate one of the ways that you can automate the configuration of your Workforce projects using Python. Now, this is the project that we're going to be using throughout the demo, as long as there's no feedback too bad. So keep in mind about the different types of work that Aaron's doing and the workers that he's going to be creating, because we're going to be using them. Aaron.
Can everyone hear me? All right. So the first step of creating a project, well, after you've created a project, the first step in configuration is you need to add some assignment types. So you can do this through the UI, or you can do this through a script that we've provided. So if you look at this example we have up on the screen, we have 4 different assignment types in a very simple CSV file. So we have tree removal, tree planting, gardening, and then trash cleanup. And so we want to just import these 4 different types into our Workforce project. So we have a script here called create assignment types. So this script down here at the bottom, you can see the different parameters that this script accepts. So the main things you want to notice are the username, the password, and the organization URL. So these are the three main things to connect to ArcGIS Online or to your portal so that you can hit the different REST endpoints to access what you need. And then for Workforce, you need the project ID, the CSV file that you want to read, and the log file so that you can record what's going on in your script. So if we debug this, we can step through and see what happens in real time. So if we debug the create assignment type script, you can see here at the bottom, it's starting up the debugger. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to authenticate. So we're at this line here right above the authentication. So if we step over this, the first call that we need to do is get token. So getting the token is what happens when you hit the generate token endpoint on ArcGIS Online or on your portal, and this gives you some authorization. So make sure that you're an authenticated user to access the resources. So if we step into this, the first thing we need to do is build the URL. So we add the generate token URL to the end of your organization. So if we hover over the URL here, you can see that we have our organization, which is nitro.maps.arcgis.com/sharing/rest/generate token. So that's the URL that we want to make a request to. And then we pass in the username, the password, the org URL as the refer, and the expiration date of our token. So we can now send a post request to this URL on ArcGIS Online and get back some sort of data, which will be our token. So we do that. So we have a helper method called post, and these scripts rely on the request library to handle the different requests we want to make. So you can see here, we say request.post, we send in the URL, we send in our data, which is in a dictionary or JSON, and then any files that we want to post, which in this case are none. So we do that, and you see we get a response back. Now in this response you can see there's a token there, and that's what we're going to use for authentication. So if we continue to step through, so we extract the token from that response, and now we have our token here, which you can see on the right. So now we have some sort of authentication. We can actually read the CSV file and start uploading the assignment types. So we have a function here called getAssignmentTypes in our script, so we'll jump into that. So here we have the CSV file, so this is just a relative path to the file on my system, and it's the same file that's opened right here. So we'll open that up using the built-in CSV reader, and then we'll loop over every line and then extract the different assignment types because they're comma delimited. So we'll do that. We only have one line, so we get back assignment types. And you can see here we have an array of 4 different types. So now we have our types, and we want to send these online. So one step that I'm not going to go into detail here, but is important, is to filter the assignment types. You want to make sure that the assignment type doesn't already exist, so you don't get duplicates and some other stuff like that. So we'll do that. Oh, let's remove these breakpoints. All right, so we filtered that, and now we want to add these different assignment types. So we have another function called add assignment types. So in here you see we pass in our org URL, the authentication token, the project that we want to add the assignment types to, and then our list of assignment types. So we can jump into this, and you can see here the first thing we want to do is get the assignments URL. So this is the URL of the assignments feature service, which is part of the Workforce project. So we have a little helper method to do that. So we'll get that URL, and if we hover over it, you can see that it's a feature service that we're accessing. And now we want to use our token and say that we want to get JSON back from our request. So we do that. Then the next step is to actually query the assignment feature service definition. So we do that. And then in here, if we set a breakpoint here, we can jump in. And so what we want to do is we want to add some new field types to the domain coded values. So if we look at the actual assignment feature layer here, in the fields, and then assignment type here, this is what's currently on ArcGIS Online right now. So in here we have an empty list, so we don't have any assignment types. So that's what we're trying to populate. So we loop over the different assignment types we're trying to add, and then we insert those into the feature service definition. So if we skip ahead a little bit, now that we've updated the local copy of the service definition, we want to update that on ArcGIS Online or on your portal. So to do that, we first have to clear out a couple fields here to make sure that the update goes successfully. So we do that, and then we build our URL, and it's important to note that this URL has to have the admin interface because you're actually updating the feature service definition. So that's a key point to take away from this section. So once we do that, we dump all of our the assignment service definition into a string, and then we hit this URL. So we'll do that, and then we should get a response back. So our response says success equals true. So we know that that was exactly what we wanted to do. So we'll just run the rest of the script. And you can see here at the bottom of the output, it says completed successfully. So that's importing assignment types. So now we have some assignment types online. If we actually scroll over here and say we want to add an assignment, you can see these 4 assignment types are populated right now. So we'll jump back to the script. So now we want to add some workers. So you can't really assign any assignments to any workers if you don't have any workers. So that's the next step here. So you can see here we have another CSV file that has the name, the status of the worker, a title of that worker, a contact number, and a user ID. So the user ID is important to note here that this is a named user on your portal or on ArcGIS Online. So if we step through the import worker script here, we'll go into some details about how this works. So again, one thing to keep in mind is you need these same username, password, and org URL parameters. And then down here, again, you need to specify the project ID, the name field, the status field, the user ID field, the title field, the CSV file, and the log file. And the reason why there's so many different parameters here is in case you have a different CSV file with different headers. The script is very modular, allows you to meet your needs very easily without having to modify it. So we'll debug through this, import workers. So again, what we need to do, first step, get our token. So we do that, we have our token. Now we want to read the workers from the CSV file, so we'll jump into this helper function we have at the top of the script. So you see we pass in the different name fields here, and they have some default values. So we open the CSV file, and we're using the dictionary reader here, which is built into the Python 3 and Python 2. So you can easily read the CSV file into a dictionary. So we'll do that. So if we step down here, you can see our workers here. We have 2 workers. We have myself and we have Craig. And now we want to actually build the JSON or the dictionary that we can submit to ArcGIS Online to add a worker. So that's what we're doing in this for loop here. So if we step through here, we're building a new dictionary. So we'll jump ahead to the bottom here so you can actually see what it looks like. So in here, we have a new worker. And if we expand this, you can see that we have attributes. So this is adding a new feature to the workers feature service. And you can see there's no geometry because the worker does not have a location. So we do that. Now we have our workers that we want to add. So we're going to step through here. And again, we want to do some sort of filtering on the workers to make sure they don't already exist and make sure that they do exist in our organization and stuff like that. So we'll jump into this function real quick. So in here, an important note is that the workforce project item on ArcGIS Online is just a JSON structure. So we can query that with the request library again and actually access the URLs of the feature services that are available. So we want to first grab the URL of the worker feature layer. So if we hover over this, we can see again it's another feature service. And then we want to get the current workers in that. So in the worker dictionary, you can see if you look at the features section on the right-hand side, there's no current workers. So what we want to do is add some workers to that. So the first thing we want to do is verify that the user exists online. So we have a little helper function to check that, and then we want to make sure that the worker is currently not already a member of the project. So we do that. We'll skip ahead a little. And you see in here, in workers to add, we have, again, the 2 workers we want to add. So we successfully filtered out the workers. So the next step we want to do is to actually add the workers. So we have another little function here called add workers, where you just pass in the token, the project, the org URL, and the workers. So if we jump into that, you can see here that we want to get the workers URL again, so we make that same REST call. And then we want to just add the add features to the end of the URL so that we can add new features to it. So we build our JSON that we want to send. So we dump all the workers into a string. And then if we call post, which we've shown earlier, this will send a post request to the feature service. So if we hover over here, you can see that we added 2 objects. They both say success was true, so we know that this worked successfully. So now that we've done that, the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that these workers are added to the group of the workforce project. So every workforce project has a group, and any user that's in that group has access to the project. So first we need to grab the group ID of the project. So we have a little helper function that does that for us. So now we have the group ID. And now for each worker that we're trying to add, we want to add that worker to the group. So we have a little helper function here called add users to group. So we pass in the IDs of the workers and the group ID. So here in this function, we build the URL again. So it's sharing/rest/community/group. So it's different than content since we're actually adding a user to a group. So if we step through that, we'll get down here and you can see our URL is right there. So we're trying to add myself, Aaron_Nitro, and Gillgrass_Nitro. So now we'll make that request. You can see Craig was not added because he's already been added as a dispatcher so that we can see the web app online, but I myself have been added to the project. So we'll step through this. We'll log the response and then we'll finish up the script. And if we look again at the console, we'll see that we completed successfully here. So now we should have 2 workers and 4 assignment types.
All right, thanks, Aaron. So a couple things I just want to highlight about what Aaron showed there. There we go. So a couple things I just want to highlight. He talked about adding the assignment types. Those are the different types of work that are being done in the project. Now, Aaron only had 4 assignment types in the project. Workforce is really streamlined through the web app to add those. We were showing 4 just to speed the demo up and get the concepts across to you. A lot of times we have users who are asking for dozens of work types to be added, and that's really what the drive behind the script is to help streamline the creation of it with that many types. In addition, for workers, it's pretty simple to add 2 workers to the project. We've done a lot of good work on making it streamlined, and Aaron was demonstrating the code. But we do get requests for people who need to add hundreds of workers to a project, and that's a lot of clicking to go through no matter how streamlined we've done it, right? So that's really the drive behind the script, is to help streamline the addition of those workers. The other 2 points that Aaron talked about that I want to mention is the workers don't have a geometry. I haven't signed in for my mobile device, right? Where would you put me on the earth? I mean, Aaron knows I'm sitting here, but when he's running the script, you don't know where he is. So that's why there's no geometry. That worker gets a geometry when they sign in from the mobile device. So that's when that would be populated. If you happen to give them a geometry, that's okay. We'll just overwrite it when they come in from the device. Okay, so it's just a best practice not to have it. The other thing is the addition to the group. That's a really key step. Just because that worker is in the feature service, that tells us the information about the worker, but not the access permissions. The groups control access in ArcGIS Online, and that's what we're using that group for. So that's a really important step that Aaron showed to follow up and make sure that you're adding that group access properly. And just to demonstrate that, let me go and create a quick assignment here to show, here are those different types that Aaron set up. And then you can see that I've also got the different workers down here. So I can go and assign something to myself, and I can go set it out in the desert, and then go and create that assignment. And when you'll do that, now I've been able to create that assignment in the project that Aaron configured through Python through the REST endpoint. So he's not doing anything special. He's just making calls to the REST endpoint, and then I'm immediately able to use that project in the web app. Everything that Workforce is doing is going through the REST endpoint. So by accessing it through Python as developers, you're really doing the same sorts of operations that we're doing through Workforce. There's nothing special or hidden that we're doing here. Okay? All right, so let's jump back in. So configuring your Workforce projects is just one thing, and these are examples of scripts that we've been asked for recently. But one of the other big requests that we get is to be able to integrate Workforce with other systems. Now, maybe you're an organization, or your clients or customers are an organization that don't have a work order or a work management system. Maybe they're using Excel files today, or there's that person in the back office who knows where all the field workers work and knows what they should do, and they're the only person who knows that, and you want to get that information out of their head and actually into the platform. Workforce can solve that for you and act as a very simple and lightweight work management system. It can also integrate with other systems that I have up here. Maybe they're homegrown systems that have been created and built up over time. They might be things like Maximo or SAP or business partner of ours like CityWorks. They might be 311 systems that you're leveraging. All of those can integrate and work with your workforce and actually feed the assignments into Workforce so that your mobile workers have that ability to take the assignments with them out into the field. So yeah, so Workforce is able to actually be that linchpin between your work management systems and the work that you're performing out in the field by doing that ETL process from those other systems and then assigning it to the workers in the field. And the way that we do that is we've defined a well-known schema for Workforce. So this is what the schema is for Workforce right here. So that project that Aaron created where he assigned the types to, really the way that he was able to know what the schema is for the workers is by looking at this schema diagram. Now this is fully documented and available online. It's in our help. We describe to you exactly how to create assignments, what fields should be populated. We're not doing anything special. We're not using any hidden fields to create assignments in a special way. Just like with workers and types that Aaron showed earlier, when you're using the REST endpoint, in this example through Python to be able to create these assignments, they'll just show up in Workforce just like if you created them through the web app. So enough of me showing slides. Let's jump into the heart of the demos for Aaron to show a couple examples of Workforce creating assignments through Python.
All right, so we have this simple, relatively simple CSV file here with about 6 assignments that we want to add. So this isn't too many assignments. Like you could clearly do this online without a problem. But if you have hundreds to thousands of assignments, like you clearly don't want to be clicking through. So that's the reason behind this script. So you can see here we have different fields. We have the X field, the Y field. So these are the coordinate fields. They are used to show where the assignment is. We have the type of assignment, so this ID here corresponds to the assignment types that we just imported like 10 minutes ago. We have the location, so this is the geocoded or the address that you put in. We have the dispatcher, so the person that is creating the assignment, so this is their ID. We have the description of the problem or the work order that needs to be performed. We have a priority. We have the work order ID, so this is used if you want to integrate with an existing system. This is just a foreign key to whatever else you want to bring into Workforce. And if we scroll over, we have a due date, so when the assignment has to be completed by, and then we have an optional field called attachment. So you can see here that we're adding a relative path to some attachment we want to add. So if we go into the actual script, you can see here again that we need to pass in a username, a password, the org URL, the project ID, and then again, very similar to the import worker script, there's all these different customizable fields that you can specify. So if we want to actually show what that looks like, we can edit the configuration real quick. So if we look at create assignment standalone and we show this drop down here, hopefully you guys can see that. But you can see here, this is where I'm specifying all these parameters. So the CSV file is this file. The username is workforce_script, so that's the dispatcher. The password is right here. The URL that our organization is using for this project is here. This is the project ID. This is the name of our X field. So if our CSV had a different X field, we would just specify that name here. So the name of the CSV file doesn't have to be exact. It's very flexible. And then we have all these other fields that I just described. And then finally, we have the well-known ID of the projection of your coordinates, and then we have the log file. So if we start debugging this, we can jump in and see what's actually going on. Let's see. So again, the first step we need to do is get our token. So we do that. We have our token here. If we hover over that, see it's valid. The next thing we want to do is import the assignments from the CSV file. So if we step into this function here, maybe. Here we go. So you can see here, we're just extracting the full path of the CSV file, so you can specify a relative path or a full path, it doesn't matter. So we'll do that, and we want to open the CSV file again, just like we did with the import worker script, and again we're using a dictionary reader. So this is nice because it doesn't matter what order the fields are in. The dictionary reader will just match the name of the field with the value of the field, so it doesn't matter the order of the CSV file. So we'll do that, we'll jump through here, so we're just adding the row to our assignment. So if we skip ahead, when we hover over assignments in CSV, you can see here we have a nice list. Actually, we'll show it here. Assignment right here. So you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different dictionaries, and these represent the assignments we're going to import. So if we step through here, very similar to the import worker script, we have to create our dictionary of JSON that we want to send to the feature service. So that's what we're doing here. So we create a new assignment. We set the status to 0 by default. We set the assignment to read as none, so we don't want to mark it as they already read the assignment. So if we hover over this, you can see it's a very simple JSON or dictionary right now. So you can see we have the attributes, and in the attributes we have the status, and the unread assignment read is marked none. So now we want to actually extract those values. So if we step through here, you see that we're adding the geometry right in this section here. So basically we extract the X field and the Y field, and we parse those as floating point numbers, and then we make sure we specify the spatial reference. So that's when you specify the well-known ID. It will default to 4236, which is WGS84. So if we do that, we'll step through the rest of these fields here so you can see what it looks like at the end. So here we go. Now if we open up the assignments out, you can see here we again have this very similar structure. It's just reformatted so that we can post this to the feature service. So if we open this up, one of these assignments up, you can see in the data section we have the attributes. So these are the attributes that we want to send, and then we have the geometry that we want to send. Additionally, we have the attachment file. So if the assignment does have an attachment, we store that here so that later on in the script we can access that file. So we'll close this down. So now we have our assignments. So the next thing we want to do is to set the dispatcher ID. So if the dispatcher ID in the CSV file is not set, we will attempt to use the signed in user's ID. So in this case, since I'm signed in as workforce scripts, I should be the dispatcher. So that's what we're doing in this section. So we'll jump ahead a little bit. So here we are. So we validated the assignment. So in this section, which we're not going to go into detail right now, but here we make sure that the dispatcher ID is valid. We make sure that the assignment type is valid. So we don't want to add an assignment with an invalid assignment type. It won't work very well. So we do that. And then we want to step into a function called add assignment. So here we just pass in our list of assignments we want to add, as well as the org URL, the token, and the project ID. So we'll step into this function. And again, we want to make sure that we get the assignments URL. So last time we were getting the workers URL, but now we want the assignments URL. So if we step over that, you can see here, it's going to be another feature service. We'll add the add features just like we did with the worker script. And then again, we'll dump all the features dictionary to a string that we want to update. So we'll do that. And then we want to post that URL. So here's the URL we're going to hit. So you can see it's a feature service / add features, and then the data that we want to send. So in the data, if we actually open it up down here, you can see that all we're sending is the format, which is JSON, the token, and then the string of attributes, which we've just showed you. So we'll do that. We'll get our response. You can see here that we have success equals true for all the assignments we just added. And now we want to update the object ID of those assignments locally in memory so that we can add the attachments back. So we'll do that real quick. So now that we have assigned the object ID back to the local copy, we can now add attachments. So if we step into this function, add attachments, we're passing in the same assignments. We just updated the object ID. So here we are. So again, we want to get the same assignment feature layer URL. We want to loop over all the assignments, and then in here we need to build the URL that we want to hit to add an attachment. So here, add URL. So we're adding the assignment feature layer URL, and then the object ID of the feature that we want to add the assignment to, and then the add attachment call that we need to make. So if we step over that, you can see what it looks like in the add URL. Hopefully you can see. So you can see at the end there, it's feature server /0, so that's the 0th layer of the feature server, and then the 16th object ID, and then the add attachment method. So then we just pull in the files using the default libraries that are available. So we do that, and then we go ahead and we send the files in with the post request, and we should get a nice response back that says we added an attachment. So if we hover over the response, you can see that success was true. So we'll do that for the next, we have 2 attachments to add, so we do that. And then that should wrap up the script pretty much. So you can see here, we're just back at near the end of the script. We'll log the response, say completed, finish it up, and then if we jump down here in the log, you can see that we have added the attachments and we've added the assignments. So if we actually jump over to the project real quick, you can see now that there's all these other assignments besides the one that Craig added earlier. So that's all great and all. It works. It uses Python plus the request library, which is a de facto standard at this point. But maybe you want to use the new Python API for ArcGIS. So we have a script that can do that. So just to demonstrate that, we're just going to delete all of the assignments real quick. So we have a handy script to do that. We're not going to go into detail, but we'll just run it real quick. Oops, wrong script. All right. So now, oh man. All right. So now if we come back here, we should see there's no assignment types, or there's no assignments, but there are assignment types. So if we come back here, we're going to run a very similar script. Open that up. So in here, if we look at the top here, we're going to be importing the ArcGIS library. So this is a library that's hosted on Anaconda by Continuum Analytics. If you look at their help documentation, it's very easy to install, and this will come with requests and a whole bunch of other useful libraries if you install Conda. So we'll jump into this. Again, it's the same exact parameters as the previous script. It's just using a different library to make the requests and to build the features. So we'll step into here, create assignments with the Python API. So again, the first step we want to do is authenticate. Now with the new Python API, they have an object called a GIS. So this represents your organization on ArcGIS Online or on your portal. So in here, you pass in the username or the password. The GIS object does support other authentication types, such as PKI, for example. So you're not limited to just basic authentication. So we'll create our GIS. So if we hover over that, we can see that we have a GIS object at nitro.maps.arcgis.com, which is our organization for now. And the next step we want to do is get the project and the data. So in the new Python API, they have it's an object-oriented API, so they have the idea of an item. So you can pass in an ID of an item and get the details of that item and the data for that item. So we'll step over that. So if we hover over the workforce project here, you can see that we have a new item type. Now, that's all good, but we need to actually get the data of the workforce project. We need to figure out what are the feature services that we need to use. So we'll make a call, get data here on the project, and then we can see here that we get a nice dictionary back. We'll scroll up. So in the workforce project data, this is what you'll see. So we have assignments, dispatchers, tracks, and workers. And each of these has a service item ID and the URL that we need to use. So this is how we're getting like the workers URL, the assignment URL, any of the other ones we need. So now that we have that, we want to actually grab the assignment feature service layer. So to do that, they have a nice object again, feature layer. So we pass in the URL of the feature service we want to grab and the GIS to use for authentication. So we can do that. And we have a nice assignment feature layer here. Nice object with lots of methods, and you can still see the attributes in the geometry. So we also need to get the dispatcher feature layer, so we'll do that. Same idea as before. And then finally, we need to read the assignments from the CSV file. So this is very similar to the previous version. There are a few key differences that we're going to go over. So again, we're reading it in as a dictionary. Same exact idea. Once we've done that, we now need to actually create the features that we want to send to the server. So using the Python API, they actually have something called a feature object, so we want to build a feature. So the first step, again, is to create the geometry and the attributes. So we'll do that. The geometry is just a dictionary, or you can think of that as JSON, and the attributes are the same exact thing. So we'll build that, same as before. And now we come down here, and this is where we want to actually create the feature. So we pass in the geometry that we just built. We hover over that, you can see we have an X point and a Y point, as well as just the spatial reference, and then we have the different attributes here that we're passing in. So we build this feature, and then we're storing that feature in a parent dictionary that will also contain the attachments that we want to add. So we do that. Move that breakpoint. And so down here, you can see we have assignments to add. So this is our list that we're returning from the CSV file. So if we look at assignments to add, you can see here in the assignment we have something called a feature, and this is what we're actually going to send to the server via the Python API. So we'll step over that. And then again, we need to set the dispatcher ID. So this is this very similar thing we did in the previous step. So we'll just skip that. And then down here, we want to add the assignment type. So this is a very nice function that the API provides. So since assignment feature layer is an actual layer object, they have a function called edit features. So in here, we can pass in the feature IDs that we want to delete. We can add the features that we want to update, and we can add the features that we want to actually add. So in this case, we're just adding assignments. So we just set adds equal, and then we dump our assignments to that. So here's the simple list comprehension to extract the feature from that. So we'll make that REST call, and you can see we get a response back, and it says success was true for all the assignments that we want to add. Same exact responses we got before. So we need to still assign the object ID so that we can add the attachments, so we'll do that for all of them. The only downside to using the Python API is they don't have full support for every REST call currently, so you do still need to use requests to add the attachments. So this is the same exact step as before, just FYI. So we'll run that again. And you can see it completed down here. You can see add results. So we added the features up here, and then we added the two attachments here. So if we scroll over, again, we have the same exact projects again. So that's importing assignments.
Woo, thanks, dude. All right, that was a lot of Python. So Aaron showed just a couple different examples to use it. One using vanilla Python, just sort of straightforward Python, right? No API, issuing REST endpoint calls, right? Yep. And the idea there was that if you're a Python ninja, or you have Python ninjas on staff, that's the code they may prefer to use and work with. But if you have people who are not quite ninja grade yet, but are aware of Python a little bit, like myself, the Python API is really simple and easy to use. I was able to download what Aaron did and actually make some changes to it and use it on the weekend to upload some example projects that we're showing here. So two different flavors of it that are available to you depending on your skill level or what the skill level of the people is within your organization. So here we are back in Workforce, and here's the assignments that Aaron just created, and you can see that a couple of them are assigned to me. Let's just kind of head over here to the mobile app, which I've got here, and you can see these are the assignments that are assigned to me. I can go in here and again work with these just like if I was working with them in the web application. So I can go and grab a couple of those assignments, start them, and then finish them as well. So really straightforward, but really driving home the point that, again, the schema for the feature services and the web maps that we create are all documented in that screenshot I showed earlier, and I'll show you the doc site at the end of the presentation. So as you're accessing these through the REST endpoint, whether you're doing it through just vanilla Python or through the Python API, you're making the same sort of calls that we are through Workforce. So to the web application, there's no difference between those assignments, right? So it looks just the same for that. So those are a couple examples that I completed. I'm going to pass it back to Aaron, who's got one more script to show with respect to how to handle completed assignments and some options for working with them.
All right, so now that Craig has completed a couple assignments, maybe we want to export these assignments back to a CSV, or we want to export these to some other system. So we have a script that demos that called export assignments to CSV. So again, in this project, or in this script, we pass in the username, the password, the org URL. Again, you pass in the project ID, a where clause, so this is the query that you want to perform. So maybe you don't want to export all the projects, maybe only the completed projects or the projects that are currently being worked on, for example. You specify the CSV file that you want to write to, the log file, the output spatial reference, so if you want to output to a different format, that's totally fine, and then finally a date format. So we'll run this script in the debug mode so we can step through it. Actually pretty simple, so export assignments to CSV. So the first step again, in this example we're going back to vanilla Python, just FYI. So we want to grab the token, we want to grab the assignment feature layer URL, so we'll use that helper method that we have. And then finally here we want to query the features. So this is the important step for this script. So we want to pass in the query. So in this example, we're passing in a query of status equals 3, where 3 represents the completed assignments. We'll pass in our token, the assignment URL, and then output spatial reference. We have not defined that, so it will default to the script's default. So we can jump into this function, the query feature layer. So in here, we basically just build the query URL, so it's the feature service / query, basically, pretty simple. And in here, you can specify lots of different fields. We're just doing a simple out fields, like we just want to grab some fields. We don't have any other custom options we want to use. So here's what we do. We pass in the where clause, which we defined here, and then we did not specify a spatial reference, so we'll just use the default spatial reference. So then we'll just make a simple GET request here, and we get a response. So here you can see we get some sort of JSON or dictionary response. So if we jump up here to the response, we can look into this and see what you get back. So we get back a list of features here. So we have 2 features, which makes sense. Craig just completed 2 assignments. So if we open these up, we can see some details. We have the attributes, we have the geometry, so exactly what you would expect to get from the feature service. So we'll step over that. So now we have the assignments. The next step we want to do is write these assignments to the CSV file. So we'll jump into this function here. So we've passed in the different assignments and the default date format. So in here, we're just extracting the different dates so that we can print them in a nice format and you won't just get an integer back. So we'll do that. So we now have the different assignment attributes. We'll step over this. So if we hover over the assignment attributes, you can see now that we've just extracted away. Oh, all right. So if we hover over the assignment attributes here, we can see that we've just extracted away the geometry and whatnot, and we've placed in X and a Y here instead. So this is what we're going to actually write to the CSV file, all these fields here. So we just open it up. Since it's in a dictionary, we can just use the default dictionary writer, which is part of the standard Python library. We just call write rows, and we're all set. So there we go. Now if we actually open this assignment, so export assignments.csv, you can see here that we have all the fields. We have the object ID, the X and the Y, the description, the status, the notes. Everything that we just saw is now exported correctly. So that's that.
So what Aaron was showing there was we're using this CSV format as just a really simple, poor man's way of dumping out to another system, right? You may use the CSV file as an interchange format for moving information. We're just using it to demonstrate that you can grab information from a CSV file, import that into Workforce like Aaron showed when he was creating assignments, and then once that work is done, you can query it for the completed work like Aaron just did, and dump that information out or export that out to a CSV file so you could write that to another system. What's a good example of what you might want to do with that? You might need to know when the work was completed, any notes that they added for it as well, who completed the work, other information that you want to have move through your system as that work assignment is being completed. Okay? The other script that Aaron showed really quickly as part of showing the create assignments a few demos ago about deleting the assignments, Workforce doesn't remove any of the assignments from your feature layers. Even when they're marked as completed, we don't go through periodically and delete those records. You don't like it when we do that, delete data without telling you, so we just left it there for you. It's up to you, right? Either the project owner or developers, GIS administrators to decide when to remove that data. We've got a couple other examples on the script sheet that shows using queries to identify which features you want to delete and remove, or move over to another system for archiving. So just a couple things to highlight really quickly. Aaron showed a lot of good examples of scripting. Really what brings it all together is our doc topic that talks about integrating Workforce with other systems. If you go to our doc website at arcgis.com/workforce, we've got the doc topics based on the different roles that I talked about at the beginning of the demo theater, the project owner, the dispatcher, and the mobile worker. If you look under the project owner and under the FAQ, you'll see that under configure and use projects, there's a question asking, can I integrate Workforce with my work order management or asset management system? And if you click on that, it'll bring you down to this question, which actually goes into details on it. It talks about the REST API for feature layers that Aaron did a really nice job of highlighting. It also points you to our GitHub repo for the Workforce scripts, but it also brings you to the topic which goes into detail about the schema. So this is actually that screenshot that I showed earlier of the schema of Workforce. So it's well known, it's well defined and documented. We explain the purpose behind all of these fields. There's a lot of info in here that you can really dig into in terms of what all the different purposes behind the assignments are, the different feature services, how you create an assignment, which fields need to be populated. This is really your cookbook for actually developing those scripts and what Aaron used when he was writing these scripts, and for you to use if you want to expand them as well. If you want to get at the scripts themselves, they're available here in our GitHub repo, workforce-scripts. If you have some issues that you've run into it, please add issues to the repo so that we can take a look at it. Aaron's already fixed a couple of those that people have identified. And we've actually added new scripts that people have asked for in the repo. The example is that import assignment types and the import workers that Aaron showed earlier. So if you've got other examples for scripts that you're looking for, let us know. We really watch this and see what kind of things you're looking for so that you can get into that information. But this is meant to be a starting point for you, so you can grab these scripts, clone them locally, make whatever changes you need, and use them within your organization. So I think that's it, but I think we might have one more thing. Yeah, so hey, who uses Slack here? Does anybody use Slack, right? Sort of, how do you half use Slack? Isn't it like all or nothing? I don't, yeah? You're sort of, right? Yeah, so we use Slack on the apps team as well. And one of the things that we looked at was actually integrating Workforce with Slack. So let me pass it over to Aaron, who's going to show just kind of a final thing that we did for working with Workforce.
All right, so we've created this relatively simple script that we call Assignment Monitor. And the idea behind this is that we want to be notified on Slack when a worker completes an assignment. So we'll post the assignment to Slack in real time, essentially real time, so you can see, so that whoever is subscribed to that Slack channel can see what was completed. So just to give a brief overview, I'm not going to debug through this, but basically we have a config file here. So in here, you specify the project ID. Here, you specify the webhook to your Slack channel that you created via the Slack website, your org, the username, the password, the log file, and then we're using a simple SQLite database that will be created on the fly if it doesn't exist already, just to store the assignment types, or store the assignment so that we don't repeat post to Slack. So that's the config file. So then in here, basically we just read the config file, and then we have a simple loop that just pulls the assignments feature service every 5 seconds to check for new completed assignments. So before we get started, we should probably assign some new assignments to Craig so that he can complete them. So we'll assign a couple to Craig. So he has about 3 or 4 assignments here. So now if we start running this script, let's see, assignment monitor. You can see it's running down here in the log. Then if we jump over to Slack, you can see we just had 2 new messages posted at 3:25 today, and it's 3:25. So these just came in just now by Craig.
That's cool, man. Right. So just a really simple example. Oh, that feedback's killing me. A really simple example of integrating Workforce into a notification system within your company. It doesn't have to be Slack. We picked it because that's what we work with on the team, but we do get a lot of requests to integrate into email or other forms. So just to demonstrate that just because these assignments live within ArcGIS, and specifically in ArcGIS Online, you can get at them and notify other people in your organization if they want to keep track of how workers are performing out in the field. And a really key thing is, Aaron showed just for assignments that are being completed. So you're not getting deluged by all the assignments that are being started or declined. You're only looking at the completed work that's there. So you can refine that script to really narrow in what you're looking for. So this is something that we just kind of threw together this week, and by we I mean Aaron. So it's something that we're going to be working on also to make it available for you to use as well as an example in that same Workforce-scripts repo. So I think that's all we got. Unless you have anything, you have more stuff you showed? No?
Well,
all right.
It's actually available right now. So if you scroll up to the ArcGIS, can you switch? So if you go to the main repo here, it's under the ArcGIS API for Python set. So just FYI, there's lots of different options for the scripts. So there you can use the Python API. You can use ArcGIS, which is kind of an older Python API. And then there's also the standalone scripts that are more customizable.
Cool.
So if we jump into here, we have a folder called Assignment Monitor, and this is where the script that I just ran resides. And then we provided a blank config file here that you can update with your own data. So you should be able to just fill in this config, run it, and it should just work for Slack.
Awesome. Yes, we'd love to get your feedback from that, right, within the repo. If you have other ideas for it, let us know. So if there's anything else, any other questions, let us know. Aaron and I will be up here as well as other members of the team. If you have any questions, come on up. And thank you for attending the demo theater. And enjoy the rest of the conference.